Hello and welcome back to Mrs. P's Prose Storytime, where we will be completing the last two chapters of SoniaSotomayor, I'll Be the Judge of That, from the Women Who Broke the Rules series. We've covered the first four chapters. Now we will read chapters 5, Burstein Barriers, and chapter 6, Electric Currents. Let's get started. From the Women Who Broke the Rules series, SoniaSotomayor, I'll Be the Judge of That. Written by Kathleen Kroll and illustrated by Angela Dominguez. Chapter 5, Burstein Barriers. In search of new ways to catch bad guys, Sonia joined a private law firm. It helped companies go after those making cheap copies of their goods. This job was dangerous enough to occasionally require a bulletproof vest. If the firm knew a shipment of fakes was coming in, Sonia sometimes went directly to the warehouse to have the goods seized. In her hairiest case, a shipment arriving in Chinatown, the criminals ran off. That day, Sonia showed up with police and actually had to hop on one of the motorcycles and give chase. Her firm made her a partner, a rare promotion for women then. She also did more than her share to help poor clients for free. She was a frequent speaker, urging women and Latinos to go into law. In her personal life, she was the fondest possible aunt and godmother, taking the kids in her life to shows and museums to expand their horizons. As 9 years passed, there were giddy whispers about Sonia, whispers that made her wince. She was on the fast track to becoming a judge. For fear of being called crazy, she never spoke of that dream. She knew about the luck and hurdles involved. If this ever did happen to her, it would be a lot later in life. Actually, no. The senator from New York State has Sonia on his radar. In 1991, he recommended her to the president. The following year, she was confirmed as New York Federal District Judge. At the stunning age of 38, she had made her dream come true. Sonia was the only Latino and the youngest judge in the state. Even she was startled. "It's very strange to wear the title judge," she said. On her first day in court, about to speak from the bench, her knees knocked together. Could the microphone pick up the sound? But the minute she jumped in with a question, she realized she'd be just fine. For the next 6 years, she judged cases on crimes involving illegal drugs and immigration offenses. Being a judge ruled. Sonia's liveliest case came in 1995. Owners of the baseball teams wanted to cut the players' salaries, and the players went on strike. They stopped working. Even the World Series was canceled, and fans were outraged. It was Sonia to the rescue, ruling in favor of the players. Games resumed, and she became known as the judge who saved baseball. She was definitely soaring. In 1997, another president nominated her to the Court of Appeals. An appeal means asking a higher court to reverse a lower court's decision. It's sort of like appealing to one parent to change the rule made by your other parent. This was such a promotion that she had to be approved by the United States Senate. It took more than a year. Opponents kept delaying, but eventually she was confirmed by a vote of 67 to 29. Over the next 11 years, she asked a lot of tough questions while judging thousands of cases. Sometimes she cut off lawyers who couldn't answer those questions. The lawyers used words like bully, nasty, and a terror. But as someone who worked for her pointed out, Sonia doesn't tolerate unpreparedness, nor should she. Her most famous case in 2008 concerned firefighters. A group of white firefighters protested that their city had unfairly promoted minority firefighters. Sonia's ruling upheld or agreed with the city's action, though in the end the Supreme Court overturned her ruling. One lovely April day the following year, Sonia was on her way to the gym. Her cell phone rang. Chapter 6, An Electric Current. It seemed that the White House was trying to reach her. When she got inside her car, she called the number she'd been given. "My heart skipped a beat," she said. At age 54, she was one of President Barack Obama's 4 candidates for the next Supreme Court judge. That's right, one of 9 of the most important judges in the country. By this time, finally, there were 2 women justices. Sonia's rivals for the job were all women. So one way or another, a 3rd woman was about to join the court. But being on the Supreme Court would be stressful. She'd be famous and lose her privacy, and her workload would be more ginormous than ever. Part of her wanted to withdraw from consideration. What? A close friend pointed out how Sonia had always lacked role models. Now she could change that for those following her. She stayed in the running. A team from the White House checked her out from head to toe. They contacted her doctor and medical experts to see if diabetes would affect her work. No. Insulin injections and careful monitoring had kept it under control for decades. Did she own anything that could cloud her judgment? No. She was never as wealthy as the people she had gone to school with, and she had no major investments, just a Greenwich Village condo. Was she really that hard to get along with? No. The team interviewed many of her coworkers and was assured that this label was false. Okay so far, but did Sonia ever break the law? Well, she did have that parking ticket, and like everyone in New York City, she freely admitted to jaywalking. But these weren't enough to count against her. On May 26, 2009, the president himself called her in New York. She was his pick. She kept one hand on her chest, trying to stay calm. She left for Washington immediately. She worked on her acceptance speech in the car, delivering it after only 3 hours of sleep. Her mother was with her, wiping away tears as the president announced the historic nomination. In July, she faced 4 solid days of piercing questions. From a Senate committee. They had to make sure she was Supreme Court worthy. Probably her biggest hurdle was a comment she'd made about being a wise Latina. Senators wanted to know what this meant. I would hope that a wise Latina woman, with the richness of her experiences, would more often than not reach a better conclusion than a white male who hasn't lived that life. Was she a racist? Was she saying that she would favor women and minorities in her rulings? This isn't what justices are supposed to do. They're supposed to use the Constitution as their guide. Sonia assured the committee that she had the utmost respect for the Constitution. What she had meant was that she knew firsthand about prejudice and how it feels to be judged. She had lived through things other judges had not. She had a broader perspective on real life. The Senate gave its stamp of approval by a vote of 68 to 31. SoniaSotomayor became only the 3rd woman and 1st Latino to sit on the highest court in the land. What did it feel like to make history? While taking the oath of office, she said, "I felt as if an electric current were coursing through me." Her first case hit her desk while she was still hiring 4 clerks and practicing baseball, throwing 20 minutes a day. To her delight, she'd been invited to throw the first pitch at Yankee Stadium a few weeks later. On game day, she performed perfectly, beaming at the crowd, cheering for her. Typically, she was scared to death her first day on the bench, in awe of her 8 companions, but she soon hit her stride. The justices often totally disagreed, but she reported that in person we treat each other with respect and love. People with a legal issue like to threaten, "I'm going to take this case all the way to the Supreme Court." But the Supreme Court is extremely picky. It accepts only 1% of cases, the huge ones, that come before it. The issues involve civil rights, censorship, freedom of religion, the death penalty, the rights of criminal suspects, and much more. Among her cases so far is one that reversed a lower court's ruling about immigration. On another case, the court decided that corporations can spend money to support or oppose political candidates. She also ruled on a case that upheld the Affordable Care Act, which provides Americans with health insurance. Her hope was to write opinions that will last the ages. Plus, being a role model, I would like there to be no child in America who grows up not knowing what the Supreme Court is, she said. A bunch of Muppets from Sesame Street hang out in Sonia's chambers. Pretending to be a princess is fun, but it is definitely not a career, she once told the show's viewers. Instead, she suggested, you can go to school and train to be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, and even a scientist or a judge. If you would like to learn more about Supreme Court Justice SoniaSotomayor, check out these readings and sources. Also, you might want to look at some of these websites that offer further readings and understanding of Supreme Court Justice SoniaSotomayor. I hope you enjoyed this chapter book about Sonia Sotomayor and that you learned a lot and she inspired you to be the best you can be. And that you will join me again next week on Mrs. P's Prose Storytime, where I will bring to you another exciting book. It will either be in English or Spanish. Tune in and find out. And we will have a wonderful time together. So don't forget, follow the guidelines and staying healthy. Wash your hands all the time and don't touch your face. And if you go outside, please wear a handkerchief. Thank you. Stay safe.